Good evening. I know some of you need time to get seated. We have some people late arriving that are on their way, but we thought we'd go ahead and get started with some little introductions so that you could relax and enjoy dinner, and then at 6:45 our programming will start. Welcome to the 4th Annual Legislative Forum, presented to you this year by the Hunt Institute and West Virginia Public Education Collaborative. We're really thrilled to have Hunt as our partner again, and Gail will talk more about this later on, but it's sort of like old times. We're together again. And so we want to recognize Patrick Sims and James. Stand up and be recognized. We also would like to recognize all of your distinguished guests, so I'm not going to say that, but our key stakeholders for the Legislators Forum are the legislators. So any of those in the room, would you please rise? All right. And this year we extended our guest list to elected public officials. So if you're an elected public official, please stand. I think for tomorrow's programming we have several that are coming. Also, somebody who's coming late, I think, is Charleston Mayor Amy Goodwin. So we'll be looking out for her. She's bringing a lot of energy and leadership to our capital city, so we're excited for that. We have a great program tomorrow at the forum, so we'd like to recognize right now all of our panelists and moderators. Will you please stand up if you're a moderator and a panelist tomorrow? And we would like to give a special shout out to the national resource experts that are in the room. If you stand up, our national. Yeah, Ryan, come on, all of you stand. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And this is the Legislative Forum on Education and the Economy. So right now I'd like to recognize everybody that's an educator, K-12 higher ed. And we especially want to recognize our Teacher of the Year. Where is she? Very delightful. Thank you so much. Very important also to us in a lot of our programming, not just the Legislative Forum, but also Focus Forward, our business community. And like we said, this is education and economy. So if you're from the business community, please stand. I saw a lot. Well, I guess you, there we go. Great, great. That's really good. Okay, we'd especially like to recognize our donors, and their logos are featured right here. We're really just so thrilled to have new donors this year and added resources. But especially what's nice about our donors is that they also offer advice and expertise, and they roll their sleeves up and help us with our initiatives. I know Leah's here representing Milan. She's been helping us with our K-12 Speakers Bureau. So will all our donors please stand up and be recognized? Very fortunate. And the Public Education Collaborative would especially like to recognize the Claude Worthington Benedum Foundation. They've continued to support the West Virginia Public Education Collaborative and Hunt Institute, and not only in this, but in all of our initiatives. And we're really pleased to have the chair of the board of Benedum, Lloyd Jackson, with us today. Please be recognized. Thank you. Also would like to recognize the Vice President of Benedum, Jim DeNova, who's in charge of education programming. And Jim is also a WVPEC board member. And I wanted to recognize all of our board members right now. This is what a lot of people say, what's the secret behind the West Virginia Public Education Collaborative? And I think we've figured it all out quickly. It's our board members. So please be recognized. And speaking of secret sauce, really secret sauce of the PEC is our chair, Gail Manchin. Thank her for all her support. So I'm really excited about the dinner panel this evening with our 4 presidents and talking about the changing landscape of education. Please take some time and relax and enjoy your dinner, and we'll start at 6:45. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening. May I have your attention, please? All right. Okay. I know everybody is wrapping up their food, and we really appreciate you all joining us this evening and tomorrow. I'm with the Hunt Institute, and as Donna mentioned, we are truly honored to continue to be a part of this and really privileged that we got to help bring this type of convening to West Virginia. For those of you who do not know us, we do similar meetings like this around the country with state legislatures and with other education stakeholders to help them lead on education and to learn and connect with other experts and other practitioners from other states. So we're excited that that's part of what we get to do here in West Virginia. We know that West Virginia, just like every state in this country right now, is facing a number of issues as it relates to education policy. And this meeting is really designed to connect you with the people who can help you answer those huge challenges that you're facing. So we're excited about this panel that we're about to have with our 5 great institution leaders, I should say. We think it'll be a great kickoff to tomorrow's discussions. Again, thank you all for being here. We know that we wouldn't be here if it weren't for our great partners with the collaborative. So really, Donna, I want to make sure that you are especially honored tonight. If you wouldn't mind standing up so we can. Donna is such a great asset to the state of West Virginia. I also want to acknowledge James, who Donna acknowledged earlier. I won't make you stand up again, but he's done a lot of work to make this happen. So thank you both. And of course, the leadership that our next speaker provides to both this event and to the collaborative and to the state of West Virginia is really unparalleled. I don't think I need to introduce or go into any detail because you all know her very well, but Gail Manchin.
Thank you, and again, welcome to the evening. Thank you all so much for giving your time to join us this evening, and we hope that you will continue to join us tomorrow for the continuation of our legislative forum. This is our 4th year, and every year it grows. Every year we believe that we bring exciting speakers, ideas, policy issues, things that our legislature deals with during their session and during their interims throughout the year. And we hope that the West Virginia Public Education Collaborative is a partner with our legislature in providing for them the information that they need to conduct their legislative session throughout the next year. But I would be really remiss in speaking about PEC to say that first and foremost, Dr. Gordon Gee, who was the brainchild really behind all that we are doing here, and in a conversation with a small group of people said, you know what, we need to connect K-12 and higher education better. We need to create that pipeline rather than the silos that we have. And that was the early beginnings of the Public Education Collaborative. And with that, we decided, we knew that we needed to have buy-in, and so Marshall University, Shepherd University, it became the prong, the triangle for this state that kind of gave a reach for people all over this state to be able to reach out and touch the higher education institution that affected them. But as we looked out on the landscape, we knew that if we were going to improve education in the state of West Virginia and connect that with economic development, we needed to connect with our legislators. That's where the policy happens. That's where legislation happens. And knowing that we did not have to recreate the wheel, we reached out to Governor Hunt and the Hunt Institute in North Carolina. And they have been our partners, our mentors, our support system, our resource experts. And this is the reason that we are now here 4 years and growing. So a special thank you to the Hunt Institute, please. So continuing in that vein, we have a really exciting evening planned for you all. And I'm going to sort of ask that we start bringing our panel up to the stage here. Dr. Gordon Gee from WVU, Dr. Johnny Moore from Pierpont College, Dr. Brian Nolan from East Tennessee. Who am I? Johnny. Oh, Dr. Gilbert. Jerry, where are you? Dr. Gilbert, please come up here. So we have our college presidents, and then I have to say that, again, going back to the inception of the idea for the West Virginia Public Education Collaborative, Dr. Gee said to me, Joyce McConnell are my eyes and ears for the PEC. And she came on board and was right there with us every step of the way, every meeting, helping us to raise funds, to do our meetings. And then kudos to Joyce. But she is now president of Colorado State University, and we're very proud of her for doing that. So a cheer out. That was certainly a loss to West Virginia, but a great asset to Colorado. And so as she went on, Dr. Mary Ann Reed, a long-standing exemplar of WVU, and the bios of these outstanding individuals are in your program, and I don't read bios. So you can do that. We're all educators here. We know how to read. So the bios are there. But what I want to say about Dr. Mary Ann Reed, so she became the provost of WVU and came on with a sense of energy and enthusiasm that has been so contagious, and stepped right in and said, I want to be a part of this. I want to carry on. I want to make the good things happen that you have been making happen. And so tonight we're giving you that opportunity, Mary Ann, to make great things happen by trying to corral these presidents in a dialogue, and all I can say to you is good luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gail, and I appreciate your kind introduction, and thank you to everybody for a warm welcome here tonight. And a very big thank you to the PEC board members and members of the Hunt Institute for convening this event and for bringing together the people in this room who are well positioned to improve and support education and workforce development in West Virginia. It is my pleasure and distinct honor to serve as moderator for tonight's discussion, which we hope will set the stage for further conversations during tomorrow's 2019 Legislators Forum on Education and the Economy. Just a little bit about me. So when I left my journalism career in 1993 to join the faculty at WVU, I honestly thought that I would be in academe for just a couple of years before returning to industry. You know this story, right? 26 years later, after moving up the academic ranks and then into administration, I'm still here. And that's because I found a true home in higher education and my purpose and my calling to train, prepare, and launch the next generation of journalists, scientists, business leaders, humanities scholars, and creative professionals. And let me also say teachers. As I've learned from my own experience, while fulfilling on so many levels, being an educator isn't always an easy path. It requires a commitment to lifelong learning, a dedication to the craft, and the willingness to change, adapt, and grow as the needs of our students and society shift over time. It also takes having a thick skin, since not everyone appreciates and values the work we do. And I think that's true now more than ever. In this changing landscape, public education in particular, faces a number of challenges. And that holds true for both K through 12 and higher ed. For one thing, we sit at the precipice of a major demographic change that will likely have a huge impact on the way we do business. Nationwide and in West Virginia, high school enrollments are declining, which means there will likely be fewer students going to college, which means greater competition for a smaller number of applicants. At the same time, public confidence in higher education seems to be waning, meaning that prospective students and their parents are beginning to question the value of a college degree and whether the investment of time and money and the accumulation of debt is worth the return on investment. These challenges, coupled with decreased government support, are forcing our institutions to rethink and reimagine how to best serve our students, communities, and region. We're being forced to work harder and smarter to demonstrate our relevance and to ensure we are preparing our students for the careers and opportunities of today and tomorrow. Higher education also plays an important role in strengthening West Virginia's workforce and economy. But we can't do it alone. We must work together with our pre-K through 12 teachers to reimagine how we educate and prepare our young people. And we must keep open lines of communication with our legislators and our other leaders to address the issues that impact public education and the changing workforce needs. A convening such as tonight's discussion and tomorrow's forum represent a big step forward. And I am so proud of the work that everybody in this room is doing to help our young people be successful. So with that, I'd like to introduce each of our panel participants tonight and then jump onto our discussion. And I was going to read the bios, but maybe I shouldn't. What do you think? They said, okay, everybody, you got the bios, we're going to jump right in. Okay, so let me begin. Okay, I'm going to switch gears. Give me a second so we can get right into the discussion. So I talked about the challenges that we are facing in higher education. And so what I want to ask is each panelist, this is a question I want to direct to each of you. And I want to say that I appreciate what Gail said and that I only have a few questions because I know that we want to ask, put it out to the audience to ask questions, but also because I'm dealing with some very smart, experienced, and opinionated leaders. So I imagine that I will ask a couple of questions and then you will take this where you want to and probably run roughshod over me, but I'm going to give it a shot. So first question. I talked about the challenges that we are facing in higher education. And so now I want to ask each of our panelists, beginning with Dr. Nolan, to talk about what you are doing at your institution to meet, address, and respond to those challenges.
Well, first, thank you and good evening. It's an honor to be here, and it's great to be back in the room and see a number of familiar faces who played a formative role in the development of many of the policies that continue to work their way through the agenda in the state of West Virginia. I think as you look at the challenges facing American higher education, many of those challenges trace their roots back to the fact that we as institutions have not altogether done the job that we should in cementing our public mission to the regions that we call home. I'm at East Tennessee State University. Johnson City, Tennessee is home. It's a region very similar to sections in the state of West Virginia, Appalachian in nature. Our mission is to improve the quality of life for the people of our region. We educate and train the teachers, the doctors, the nurses. We're the entity that makes the economy move. But quite often we're insular in our focus, talking about those things that impact faculty, staff in the academy, rather than looking externally at what we can do to improve the quality of life for the people of our region. So issues related to affordability, finance, teacher preparation are systemic across American higher education. But I think we've, in many respects, lost that narrative. There's a narrative around public debt. At our institution, half the students who graduate with no debt at all. Those who hold debt, it's right at about $23,000 a year. We've lost track of the narrative around the return on an investment of higher education. But I think we've also lost a little bit of the narrative around the focus on access. So as we look at the responsibilities that we face as institutions, I think it's to return to that purpose of mission, be it a land-grant mission or a public mission such as ours. Mission's why we're here. We're all state institutions, and we exist to benefit the states that we call home.
Thank you very much. Dr. Gee.
Well, thank you for stealing what I was going to say.
I didn't hear
you read my book, I can see. But anyway, a couple of things. There are 4,500 universities in this country and colleges, Johnny, and one of the real challenges we face is the drift, I call it. And that is the fact that institutions tend to want to look like other institutions rather than be like themselves. You know, West Virginia is a very unique place, unique people, unique time, unique opportunity. And at least for our own institution, what we are really preaching is the fact that we want to be distinctly land-grant, we want to be fiercely West Virginia, and we want to make certain that we are focusing on the three prongs of our institution. One is education, but it's pre-K through life. That's the reason we're right here with the collaborative. Secondly, obviously, is healthcare, which is the tent pole for the future of West Virginia. If we do not solve our health problems, we will not be able to really move forward as a state. And then the third is to create jobs. And you know, not many university presidents, and Jerry and others will tell you, not many university presidents dare say that our job to your faculty is to create jobs, you know, but that's what it is. And so I think that the universities that are going to survive and thrive are going to be the ones that discover who they are in their own space and in their own skin, and rather than constantly trying to be like other institutions. The other thing, to me, is the fact that we've also got to realize that the days of being able to ponder the future of higher education are really limited. I have two things that I dislike. One is the fact that I dislike strategic planning. I think that by the time you plan, you're dead, and it really is something that that in today's world, everything is moving so fast that we've got to be engaged in action at all times. We've got to seize the opportunity, seize the moment, seize who we are, and then make that happen. The other thing, and I'll just say this, I think that the greatest detriment to higher education in this country right now is not all the financial problems and a variety of other things. I think, and it comes back to my first point, I think it comes back to the fact that we've gotten into this notion of rankings and ratings. U.S. News and World World Report is maybe the most destructive magazine in history, and I think that we've got to realize that there are a lot of good institutions that play a very important role, and that we've got to get out of this notion of trying to climb the rankings, but rather we've got to climb the possibility of training and exalting people and inspiring them.
Great. Dr. Moore.
Oh, thank you. Good evening, everyone. And both these guys stole my answer. I'm third in line here as a community college. No, all of us, all of our institutions, regardless of the level, regardless of the type of institution, we all are faced with so many different challenges that prevent our students from successfully making it to the finish line. So at Pierpont, what we are laser focused on is student success, because all of us, we get many students from everywhere are coming to us with different expectations of what the college can do for them. And we have students that come to us that do not have a clue as to what they want to do. That's okay, because as an open enrollment institution, part of our mission is to provide pathways for absolutely anyone, regardless of their educational background. And that's the beauty of community colleges. As you know, one of the things that brought me to the great state of West Virginia is that our community college system is relatively young. When I say relatively young, about 15 years or less old. And we are still trying to figure it out in terms of a community college. I know we have a legislator who, for a long time, when people think of higher ed, they tend to think of 4-year. But as you mentioned, things are changing. And so if we want a different outcome, we got to do things differently. And that's what we're about doing at Pierpont. I'll give you a specific example of what we've done at our institution to cater to the needs of our students. All of us up here are on semesters, right? So we typically have at our institution 16-week semesters. 4 years ago when I came into the institution, we were operating like a university. Well, now we're operating like a comprehensive community college. So we have not only do we have a 16-week semester, we have a 12-week semester, we have an 8-week term, and this time, for the first time in the history, we'll be offering a winter intersession. These are the types of things that our students today are looking for. Most of our students have to work. Long gone are those days when I were in college when I made my schedule based upon Professor A and Professor B, based on which one of those professors are good. That's who I take. Where our students now are making their schedules around babysitting and working. And so as a comprehensive community college, what we're doing, we're putting flexible terms in place to address that need. And when you start looking at the bottom line at our institution, our enrollment is up 11% this semester. So those are the wonderful things that we are doing to make sure that students make it to the finish line. Another thing that we're doing, I'll give you a specific example, and I know I don't want to hog the time here, but you did ask presidents to talk. So.
I know.
But another thing that we did last Friday at our Advanced Technology Center, we had 600 middle school students throughout the area attending our school for our 3rd annual Stream Day. So we're specifically getting those young people in, exposing them to STEM careers. And the beauty of what we did was we didn't only have companies in and having professors talking to them about different occupations because of the wonderful thing that the legislators did, because part of the component is our students that get the West Virginia Invest, which I'll talk about a little bit later. There's a community service component. We had students working there at that event, sharing with those middle school kids their experiences. And so we're really exposing them to what college is really like. And it's amazing things. Studies show when you expose middle school kids and get them to start thinking about college in middle school, they persist and pursue higher education. So those are the things that we're doing at Pierpont.
That's great. Dr. Gilbert, what are you doing at Marshall?
Well, we're doing a lot of things, and something that I think many of us are faced with is public perception of higher education not being a good investment. And I think we as institutions have to prove that we're good investments, and I think one way we can do that is to show our relevance, and the other way is to focus on the student. And I don't think we've focused on the student enough. We focused a lot on recruiting, but we've not focused enough on retention and graduation. And we are putting in place programs to focus on student success, just as Johnny said. And we're also looking at industry. And I think to be relevant, we have to respond to the needs of the state and respond to the needs of industry. We have to partner with businesses, and we've been partnering with businesses at Marshall. And I think that's the key to the future, is to create partnerships between businesses and universities. We're working with Special Metals in our town, also with Toyota and others for internships, co-op programs, getting real-world experiences for our students. I think that's very important. We're also focusing on need-based scholarships in our campaign, and we just rolled out new comprehensive campaign, and our #1 priority is need-based scholarships, addressing the affordability question. I think we've got to show the state that we can be important contributors to the economic development of the state, and we've got to create an environment for our students to be entrepreneurs. We're introducing entrepreneurship into all of our freshman classes next year, and we're going to train our students to be creative thinkers, individuals that would want to go out and start their own business. We just opened a business incubator in town where those students will be able to, as well as individuals in the community, will be able to start their own business and get support from our College of Business. Our College of Business is interfacing with businesses, giving them support, defining our relevance as an institution. So lots of things are going on.
So you talked about students. I'm going to actually start with you again because you talked about students. And, you know, we've heard of Generation Z, right? Which doesn't stand for anything other than it's the end of the alphabet. Am I right? That's right. So it's a whole kind of different, they're different cats, right? They are supposedly, they're digital natives. They are very serious about their education. They're very career focused, but they're very close to their parents. And the people say they're more like their grandparents than their parents. They're unique. So tell us about Gen Z and any of you, but I'll start with you, Dr. Gilbert.
Well, thank you.
How do you cater to those?
Well,
those
you know,
students?
we realize that these students that we have today, the Generation Z students, are different than the millennials. And, you know, those millennials were here not too long ago. We know that they are more independent than the millennials were. They were team-focused. They're also more entrepreneurial, which is good for us because we think that's going to be an opportunity for us to stimulate them to go out and create jobs in West Virginia. So we also know they're more sensitive. And I've had to do a lot of educating on the First Amendment. And just because someone says something that's offensive to you does not mean that this president is going to censor a person at our university because something they said, either an outside speaker or a staff member or a faculty member said something that might be offensive. We've got to toughen up these students, and we are showing them examples of how to civilly engage in discourse and debate and not to be offended when someone has an opinion that's different than yours. I had to face that when I was here early on as a new president. I was here for 2 months. Someone came into my office, a student said, "Dr. Gilbert, someone has written all over the university in chalk, Trump, 2016, build a wall." And I said, "Well, what do you want me to do about it?" And they said, "Well, this is offensive to our international students. You've got to go and erase all of those." And I said, "You know, this is a country where we fought for the right to speak our mind. And if you want to go out and produce a different point of view, get some chalk and go out there and write it. But I am not going to censor by erasing things on the campus just because those things might offend someone." So I think we've got to do some educating to the Generation Z, but we've also got to respond to them. We're using social media to communicate with them. They're very responsive to text messages, not so much to email. So we are using that as a way to communicate with the students. And I've always said we have to meet students where they are. And older faculty, like myself, they always thought, well, they've got to conform to me. No, I don't think that we have the students conform to us. I think we meet them where they are and interact with them at their own, on their own level.
I think my boss is itching to say.
I think, well, let me just say something.
Well, Gordon's always itching, you know?
I meet him in the bars, Jerry. I want you to know that. So
I know you don't drink, Gordon, so what are you doing in the bars?
Because then
All right,
I can
behave.
get their money while I'm there. So anyway, it's you know, I just want to comment on a couple of things because this Generation Z issue. So there's a lot of data to show. The generational difference between my generation and the next generation and that generation, all of them are very small. I mean, there are modest differences. The difference between the millennial generation and the Z generation is a chasm. They are as different as if one was born on Mars and one was born on Venus. So we have to deal with that. The second thing is, and you've really spoken to the issue of sensitivity, and a lot of that is brought about by our universities themselves. I mean, you know, university presidents are cowards.
And there are a lot of universities that are protecting their
Well,
sensitivity.
I mean, but I'm saying that. I mean, you know, I think university presidents are basically cowards. They cower under this issue, and if someone writes something that someone thinks is offensive, they say, "Oh, that's too bad," and we'll immediately. But pretty soon, the dialogue on our university campuses is so mundane that it's almost frightening, and I think that we need to deal with that. The third thing is that they are all the surveys show that the Generation Z are very lonely.
Right.
And let me just say that again, they're very lonely. They're the loneliest generation that we have ever been able to survey, and we don't know quite why that is. But I think I can speculate. If you ever watch a group of students, I watched them the other day. 4 of them walking side by side, all of them friends, but all of them were on their devices. They don't talk to each other. There's no dialogue. There's no conversation. It's all about. They're probably texting each other while they're walking with each other, and that I think is singularly unhealthy.
I'm surprised
by the
you
way.
and I are texting each
Yeah,
other.
right. I know. Well. And then the other thing is the fact that 10 years ago, about 5% of the students who entered into collegiate life felt that they had some form of mental health issues. Now it's 35 to 40%. Right. I mean, we have an absolute rampant, chaotic situation in terms of mental health, and we've got to deal with it. Now. That means we have to put a lot more resources into it, but also we have to get them out of their cocoons. And this is the point. This is the point. You know, when I came to West Virginia, oh gosh, it's been nearly 6 years ago. When I came, we had about 100 different student groups on a campus of 33,000 students. We now have well over 500. I mean, you can do anything. You can be a member of, you know, the Global Brigades, Habitat for Humanity, the Young Communist League, anything you want to be. And I think I think we need to work very hard to make certain that our students get involved in something meaningful, but something that is outside of themselves. If they hide in their rooms, one of the things that I do, which I think is very interesting, now you got me on a roll.
I got you on the roll.
Yeah, one of the things that I do is the fact that every student has to swipe everything at the university.
Right.
And so we take a look now at those swipes. And if we discover students who are not swiping on the weekend, that means one of two things. One is that they're going home, so they're not involved in the university, or two, they're hiding out in their rooms. So I call them in and say, you know.
Or they're in the bars with you.
Yeah, they have to swipe with me, but anyway, so we start calling them in and say, you know, what are you up to? I mean, we've got to deal with this process of loneliness and engagement. I think that's very
important. And we're
important.
doing the same thing. We're engaging all our freshmen on campus.
Dr. Moore wants that. We got to break them up.
We're like
two guys.
the two of us. We're like a
these two guys,
stand-up team.
Just because you guys are university president doesn't mean I don't have anything to say.
We have doubted that.
But no.
We know you have a lot to say, John.
In all seriousness, for the audience, when we're talking about Gen Z, we're talking about this age group of people that was born in 1995 to 2010. The reason I know that I have a Gen Z at home. And so, Dr. Gee, they do communicate. They do communicate. They text, they tweet, they IM, Instagram, they do all of these things. They're doing all of those things. And in fact, the term that's out there nationally is that we call them communaholics. They communicate, but they're communicating that way. It's just that, but
they're communicating in the darkness of their room.
I agree, but we have to recognize that because technology is here to stay, so we have to change a little bit on how we're interacting with this group. One of the things that we are doing at our institution is we're becoming more student ready. And what I mean by student ready, becoming a student ready college. And what I mean by that is that years ago, we had this notion of that we want to orient students to the college. And we still do that to an extent, but now we're changing that college readiness narrative to be more of we're orienting the college to them. We're looking at what policies that we have to change to make sure that those students are comfortable and those students are being creative. And so we're providing development for our faculty members to understand this, because our faculty members, myself, I started out teaching in the math classroom, and typically when you're teaching math back in the day, what you would do is you come to class and say things like, okay, students, you do your thing up there on the board. That's what I used to do, and I would impress. I thought I was the best damn math teacher there was, and I would turn around and say to students, are there any questions? Of course they didn't have any questions, because why? They did not know what questions to ask. And so some of the things that we're doing is we're using this concept called flipped classrooms, where you introduce the content to students at home, and then in class time, you're more actively engaged in the homework. So those are the types of things that we have to do a little bit better to address this generation, because there's nothing really wrong with the Gen Zs. I'll give you an example. My son, this is, I know from experience, this is my son, 15-year-old. So, and the way I would study, and most of you all probably would study, is that I have a nice hard chair, the light is very bright, and everything is off, and I'm in my zone, I'm studying. And so my son study, relaxed, sitting back, earbuds, all of those types of, that's how they study. So we
Multiple devices,
yes,
right? Yeah,
they're
always,
multitasking, so we have to understand that and change in the delivery on how we relate to them. So those are some of the things that we're doing to reach that group.
Dr. Newell, would you like to weigh in?
Yeah, I'm going to take it in a slightly different direction, because one of the things that we find is that Gen Z students really want to be engaged and involved and make a difference. They're very compliant, they're rules following, and if they're provided direction, they have a fire lit under them when it comes to public service. So all of our scholarship programs on campus require a service component. We have service components built into multiple aspects of programming at the university. And all of our students, before they ever take a class, engage in community service across the region. And last night in a room about this size, we had around 200 folks, the majority of whom were students, engaged in a Shark Tank type activity, taking student groups and community groups linked together for purposeful interventions to address issues in the community. So what we find with Generation Z is if you provide them with direction, they're much more apt to volunteer, they're much more apt to give back, and they really want to be a part of something purposeful. Because when your whole life's focused on a phone, that chance to make them set the phone aside and engage in giving back, it's very, very different than generations that have come before them. I think we also need to recognize that the pressure that they've been under to excel is different. My son's also about to turn 15. My son has a sense of what it's going to take from an ACT score to get into school. And I visited 15 high schools in the past 3 weeks. I can't tell you the number of students that I've met who took the ACT in the 9th grade, the 10th grade, and the 11th grade just to cue themselves so that they could be competitive from a scholarship perspective. Their parents are putting so much pressure on them for scholarships to offset the cost. That's one of the reasons why there's the mental health issues when they arrive on our campus. But what we found in summation is that if you're purposeful with the intervention and give students the chance to be engaged and involved, they will volunteer more than prior generations.
Okay, that's wonderful. So I'm going to switch gears because I want to make sure we have time for the audience to ask questions. So I'm going to transition to talk about public education prior to higher education and how we work together to address some of the needs. So as we know, the public education as a whole is facing a number of challenges as well. And we are seeing that directly on our end because enrollment in teacher prep programs are going down, and it's happening nationally. It's a trend. So as a result, we're seeing a growing teacher shortage. So my question to the panelists, and any of you can jump in on this, is what is the role of higher education in addressing this? How do we either remake teacher ed or teacher prep education or remarket it to attract a new generation of K through 12 teachers? Anyone can jump in.
Johnny, why don't you go first?
You guys have teacher education.
That's true, yeah, sorry.
You don't have teacher education, okay. Well, I will start then. I think we have to raise the status of teachers in society. I think we don't value them as a society as much as we should. That is one of the issues of why students don't go into teacher education. They see engineering, they see medicine, they see law as professions that pay more and have a higher status. It's one reason I went out this year and established a new scholarship at Marshall. We call it the Mayor Foundation Scholarships, Mayor Scholars. It's a $75,000 scholarship per student over 4 years. It's $15,000 a year, guaranteed study abroad, laptop computer. We could only afford 4 of them, but these students are going to be the prime scholarship recipients, and we wanted to put a value on them to show that we value K through 12 education in higher education.
So I missed that. Are these for students who are studying education who want to be teachers?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
or
That's
math
great.
and science to stay in West Virginia. And we think that that's going to change the discussions in our College of Education about the quality and the value that we place on those students that are going into teacher ed. I should also say that our elementary education program has been ranked in the top 10 in the country in some rankings. So I think we have to do a better job of saying we have quality programs here in West Virginia that you can go into and get a quality education to go into teacher prep.
Great.
You know, when I was, when I lived in Germany for 3 years, and the word Lehrer, which is teacher, was the most important word in the German language, much more important than doctor, or engineer, or whatever. And I think that status is very important. And I agree with you, and I think that the payment issues, a number of other kinds of things. But we do need to, we have tremendous deficits in this state in terms of teachers. We have so many more jobs than we have trained teachers, number one. Number two is the fact that we need to really focus on math and science. Not that the humanities aren't important, they are, but we certainly do need to focus on that, and we need to have special training programs for that. The Collaborative and others are talking about that. I love what you're doing in terms of really providing incentives for people to stay in the state, and we need to do that. We also very candidly, and I'll say this, I know this is not necessarily the most popular thing to say, but I think that until we change some of our state educational policies to encourage teachers to stay here, one of the single biggest reasons that we lose teachers out of the state, a number of them like to stay here, is because of the fact that they don't know whether they're going to have a job. We have these bumping rights and a variety of other things. Until we have fundamental change and get rid of the rules that are protecting people's jobs instead of creating opportunities for the young to come in here, we are going to be relatively unsuccessful. And the faster we can get rid of those rules, the better. So I think that those are the issues that we need to face. Now, we did it at the university. We have moved to performance basis. We got rid of bumping rights, a number of other things. It has greatly enhanced our ability to be able to be competitive in the quality of what we're doing. I'm just not focusing on that particular issue, but I am focusing on the fact that we have created a rule-centered educational system, and it needs to be a student-centered educational system. And the faster we can get to that, the better.
Right.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I was going to ask you a question specifically, Dr. Nolan, but please weigh in.
And I also think that sometimes we need to turn back time and look at what has been successful in the past. So I have the honor to serve an institution that grew out of a piece of legislation passed in Tennessee in 1909, the Normal School Act, a piece of legislation to create teacher colleges to educate teachers to go into the rural sections of the state and pass along the joy of learning. When we opened our doors in 1911, we opened our doors with an embedded secondary school, training students grades K through 9 at the time. That building moved into a new facility in 1929 called Alexander Hall. Fast forward now to 2019, we run a lab school on campus. We always have. It's an opportunity for innovative pedagogy, innovative curricula. It runs on a year-round calendar. All of the faculty are tenured at our institution. We control the curricula. We control the grading. But it's a chance for us to be innovative. It's a chance for us to be flexible. But it's also a chance for the institution to drive home the importance of the relationship that we have P16. You know, as a son of an educator, and my sister-in-law is a third-grade teacher in Greenville, Tennessee. If you were to ask her what she would look for, she would look for greater pay, greater flexibility, but what she really wants is the chance to focus on her students, not to focus on testing, not to focus on assessment, but to focus on why she got into teaching in the first place. She knew she wasn't going to get rich, but she did it to make a difference, and she'd want more time with her students. Through some things that we run at the university, we try to give that to our employees, and it's a great way to sometimes see that old ideas become new again, and maybe they weren't so bad after all.
Great.
You know, I don't have
Dr. Moore.
a teacher education program at our colleges, but my colleagues are in the audience. Perhaps as a state, we can look at some type of grow our own program, or we can have guaranteed articulation agreements with two-year college where they can do 2 years at our institution and then go to one of the four-year schools and complete to get people in the pipeline. I mean, it's some creative things that we can do, but I would hope, you know, we, as a state, part of the reason I came to the state is that it was my dream or my hope that we eventually become a true feeder to the universities. And that's one way
That's great.
of starting that.
I think in the Gazette on Sunday, there was a picture of Speaker Hanshaw at Explorer Academy in Huntington, which is an expeditionary learning school, the most innovative elementary school I've ever been in my life. And I would encourage every legislator that hasn't visited that school to go to that school, because it is an example of a public charter school, if you want to put it in quotes, charter school. But there is innovation there is student focus, and it is what we should have as a model for every elementary school in the state.
And I think also universities need to rebuild those models. We gave up the laboratory schools a long time ago, and that was a horrible mistake. Right now, we're talking with our own school district to create what we call a metro school. I did this in Columbus. It's a combination school between the public school district and the university. It's about high performance. It gets rid of all the rules. It is all about innovation. Teachers who want to teach there have to live by the notion that they just have to be creative and energetic, and we attract students there, and it really sets a model. And we need to have points of light in this state. And that's what we need to do. And I want to come and see that school.
I would love for you to.
Yeah,
It's a public school in town. I would love for us to think about having a residential math and science high school for 11th and 12th graders that
Absolutely.
would draw from the whole state. Small states do it. State of Mississippi has one. They're just as poor as West Virginia. So it's a fabulous idea in terms of innovation.
All right, so we have some time to take questions from the audience. Do we need a mic? Oh, no, yep, I called on you. I'm sorry. I don't know your name, but I'm pointing at you, yes.
Wow. It occurs to me that we just authorized public charter schools in West Virginia, but one of the policy provisions of that was in, that was out, that was in, that was out, was the ability to authorize or empower our higher education institutions with the authority to create or imagine a public charter school within your own institutions, much like you suggested. And I would wonder here at the West Virginia Public Education Collaborative, did we miss an opportunity?
You did, but that's the reason I said we'd do it around it. Rather than creating a charter school, we'll create a public school in connection with the school district, because we did miss that opportunity. I think that you can't create charter schools in small communities; they're just not going to work very well. But in some of our larger communities, they need to be there because people need to have choice. You think about this. Think about this. Think about this as just a public phenomenon. In our country, we really have public schools, and they work toward a certain regimen. There is some innovation, but not the kind of creativity I think that we'd want to have in the public education. And so therefore, we're now scoring 36th, 38th, 40th in the world in terms of math science education. I mean, it is shameful what has happened in this country. Then we moved to our higher education institutions, and after about the first or second year, our universities and colleges have launched into being about the best in the world. There are 4,500 of them, but there's large and small, public and private. There's Mormon and Catholic. There's choice, and because we have choice in this country in higher education, we have fabulous higher education systems, and the choice, and in the federal systems in Germany, in Japan, and a variety of other, they have federal systems where there's no choice, and their universities have gone to hell in a handbasket. So think about that as one of the structures we need to take a look at.
Okay. I think another question. Yes, that woman there.
So I'd like to applaud the gentleman from Marshall in his zeal to protect free speech. I very much agree with that. And a lot of people have a misconception that there is some kind of carve-out for hate speech in the First Amendment, which is just not true. But my question, and it's open to anyone, are any of you encouraging your faculty, your teachers, your influencers of the young to display civility and to learn to disagree with someone without devolving into hatred? And the reason I ask that, I'll give a specific example. There's tons of examples, so it's not limited to one school or one individual, but there was a delegate who passed away very recently, Sharon Malcolm. She happened to be a Republican, and a faculty member from Marshall posted online, "Good, I'm glad she's dead. That's one less GOP snake in the pit." So my question is, I think that all of you appreciate free speech, but are you helping those who educate to learn that civility, sometimes you can say something, it doesn't mean that you should. That's my
Well,
question.
let me say that repulsed me to read that. I thought it was inappropriate, it was inhumane, but I didn't call up that professor and reprimand them. I was letting their own fellow faculty members, which they did, criticize that person who I think regretted it later on. We're trying to promote civility on our campus, and we actually have a institute that's focused on civility, but you're always going to have bad actors. You've got bad actors in the legislators. You've got bad actors everywhere. So there's always going to be an example of someone who says something that is inappropriate. I think free speech protects someone, that person, but just because you can say something doesn't mean you should say something.
Yeah, I love the question because of the fact that I think that, I really do think it starts with university leadership. I think it starts with the university president, with us right here. Unless we model it, we're not going to. Someone comes to me and says, gee, I'm offended. I say, too bad. Because of the fact that the marketplace will prevail. And universities, the one thing that makes me more irritated than anything is the fact that universities are supposed to be places of ideas. They're supposed to be safe in terms of ideas. Good ideas, bad ideas, irritating ideas, ideas that offend, and we should be able to debate those and do so civilly. The minute we cut off any ability to have those kind of debates by not inviting people onto campus or by having certain criteria for invitations or by allowing students to throw chairs and shout people down, we have lost our right to call ourselves a university.
And it's divided on all sides. We're here to teach students how to think, not what to think. But in any given year, you're going to do something on campus that offends a group. 2 years ago, we had Newt Gingrich on campus, and my office was worn out with, why would you bring him to campus? Last year, we had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on campus, and my office was worn out with, why would you bring Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to campus? So you've got an open palette. You have all sides, all opportunities, all points of discussion. But I think we all need to recognize that at some point, we're going to disagree with someone, but you've got to give that someone the opportunity to talk. And I've got to admit, I didn't realize Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was so divisive.
He's just
You
tall.
know, he's just tall. We play Kansas in about 45 minutes. If he could go back in time, I'd love to have him.
Yeah, there you go.
So we have two questions at this table. I'm going to start with this man who's had his hand up. Yes, you?
My name is Charles McElwee.
Hold your microphone up, Charlie.
My name is Charles McElwee. I'm 92 and a half years of age, and there's no reason for most of you to know me because I'm a non-entity. But I was intrigued by the term armchair, and it is defined as an armchair discussion. And an armchair is defined as those chairs with plush seating and a place to put your arms. Look at what we are. I think it was intended that we never participate in this discussion, only those. Well, I don't think that's what Donna and Gail intended. And I want to start with those two right there. Those two women, right there. My wife and I have gotten to know them very, very well. And I'll tell you, they share our core values. And I'll tell you, within the next year, we are all going to be faced with what are our core values, namely, what are we willing to go to the barricades to defend? And I'll tell you, those two women have core values that I will go to the barricades to defend, Donna.
Thank you very much.
You know, at my age, it's always what we ought to do. Ought to do. I don't have much more time to deal with ought to do. We've got to do, for God's sakes. We've got to do with respect to our economy, with respect to our public education system, with respect to our health affliction. These are the essential issues that we need to face up to. And these people up here are our leadership, particularly the president of Marshall and West Virginia University. These other two are going to come forth tomorrow, and we'll get to know them better. And I'm sure then they will be shared with the other two there on. With Gordon, can you imagine that he has been the president of 5 universities, including twice at Ohio State University? No other person has ever achieved that notoriety. And the president of Marshall, watch out, Gordon. Watch out, Gordon. This president of Marshall University is coming forth as a leader for West Virginia. And we're most impressed to have them, and I hope to hear the next time they're converting from what we ought to do to what we do.
That's great.
We've got to get on with it.
Thank you very much. All right.
That's enough.
According to the latest reports from the EAB, due to a decline in the birth rate some years ago, there will be a significantly fewer students graduating high school and going to university starting in 2024. I'd like to ask each of the panelists to comment, what impact do you think that will have on higher education, and particularly what do you think needs to be done in West Virginia or Tennessee to combat that and deal with it?
Well, thanks, Tom. That's really a great question. That's a great question to end on. I'm going to retire at some time. No, just kidding you. I think that so the answer is and it comes back to the initial conversations. We've got to learn to differentiate ourselves. Students are not going to go to amalgamation place, not going to a place that's like everyone else. These students are going to choose. The Z generation, which will become the Alpha Z generation, are going to want to have different kinds of choices. They're going to make those choices. Secondly of all, we're in a very challenging environment. The truth of the matter is we can no longer afford to say that every person has the right to walk to college. We're going to have to realize that some institutions are not going to survive, and we should not try to become a Red Cross unit to every institution. We should say if institutions are not going to survive, then let's figure out a way to move so that we can do some further consolidation and remassing and a variety of other things. The third thing is we're going to have to think very carefully about how we recruit. But in the end, it's not about recruitment. In the end, it's about retention. You know, we're the first university in the country to have a dean of completion. I tell everyone, you know, we do a great job of recruiting kids. We bring them in, they have big fancy places where they recruit them and a variety of other things, but it doesn't matter if you get them in, it matters if you get them out. And that really is where we've got to spend our time and energy.
So if this is the last question, then everybody has a final say. So do we do that? This is your
Okay.
final say?
I agree with Gordon. I think you're going to see less universities, particularly the smaller ones. They're going to, I think, succumb to the competition that's going to be out there for the students and not be able to survive. So I think you're going to see a lot of smaller institutions go by the wayside. I think universities are going to become more responsive. And when I say more responsive, they're going to have to adapt to what the students are looking for. We're developing a program of micro-credentials because I think there are going to be students that are not wanting a four-year degree out of high school. They're going to want some training. I think you've got to be able to give them that training and some value associated with it, a micro-digital badge or a credential or something. IBM came out last week and said they're not interested in college graduates. They can train them in-house. So I think the universities are going to have to be responsive, and I think those universities that partner with businesses more are going to be the ones that survive.
So I didn't get a chance to ask you, Dr. Moore, about West Virginia Invest, and maybe you can tie this into your answer.
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Gilbert. I mean, when you really think about, when you look out there, and I agree with Dr. Gee in saying that it's not a matter, I know at our institution, we focus more on the retention piece. And that's what I said, we are becoming laser focused on student success. So I'm saying we have to take care of the students that we get and make sure they cross that finish line. And we have to do things differently in terms of, like I was mentioning about changing the schedule format to accommodate the needs of the students, what they need, that type of thing. And Dr. Gilbert is right, you stole from my notes. But, no, I'm kidding. But when I look on the horizon 10 years from now, you know, what we as institutions all have to do is to start looking, a student, let me say it this way, to tie in with the West Virginia Invest. What I'm seeing with the West Virginia Invest, our students have become more savvy shoppers. And what I mean by that, students, parents and students now are really looking at, you know, historically looking at those different attributes as to, okay, what college am I going to? Where am I going to start? Am I going to start at a community college? What degree am I going to major in? They're beginning to really dig down and figure out what they want to do. Okay, people going to, say, Pierpont. Okay, what's the return on investment? Okay, they have students, I know they have students that graduate on a Thursday and they go to work on a Monday. And by the way, we do have 100% employment rate, job placement rate in a number of our programs. Students are beginning to understand that. Those students, they start those programs, they make anywhere from $65,000, $70,000 a year with no student debt. I mean, think about all of us. If you're 21, 22 years old, you're making $65,000, $70,000 a year with no student debt, what are you probably going to do? Buy a truck or something. Well, think about the return. Those are the types of things, the decisions students are making. They're not so much looking at, well, I'm going to go to that institution because it has a brand new football stadium. They're becoming more savvy. So you're going to see that more. You're going to see more internet playing a more prominent role in higher education in terms of learning.
And comparison shoppers, right?
Yes, that's exactly right.
A lot of that. So, Dr. Nolan, you get to sum this up.
Well, I was going to say, I'm going to speak on some of this tomorrow, so I'm happy to yield my time to my colleagues from West Virginia. But to Tom's question, I think as you look at the projections from EAB, the peak is in 25, 26, but in West Virginia, our peak was 10 years ago. So you already see fewer high school graduates now than we had a decade ago. Where it's impacting the institutions is the states that we've traditionally relied upon to bring enrollment. So states such as Pennsylvania, Virginia, New Jersey, as their numbers decline, it's going to be more competitive for all institutions to enroll traditional undergraduate students. So what are we doing to bring students with some college but no degree back to our institutions? How are we looking at our sequences, our schedules? And then also, how do we look at the needs of workforce? We launched at our institution last year an LPN to BSN program that runs on an atypical sequence. We take the courses to the students all across the state. We will soon be, by the close of this fall, the preferred provider for LPN to BSN programming for Vandy. And we've done that on 6-week semesters. We've done it year-round, and we've put it together in a way that takes clock hours to credit hours. But if you look at things that are innovative in space, ultimately for me it comes back to mission. We all can't be the same thing. My institution is in West Virginia University. We're not Marshall. We're not Pierpont. Everyone can have a med school. Everyone can have an engineering program. Everyone can have a college of education. What's your mission? What's your mission space? And how can you be distinctive in that space? Institutions that try to be all things to all people without scale won't last.
All right, last words.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, this is my last word, I promise.
Can't
I
argue
promise,
with my boss.
okay.
Yeah, as long as you want, Gordon.
So no. Let me just say that there is a solution that we sometimes forget. We have the lowest college going rate in the country. We've got to solve that problem. Secondly, we've got to keep our young people here. And third, we've got to provide jobs for young people. We've got to make West Virginia cool. If we do those 4 things, we're not going to have a problem. We're going to have an opportunity. And we've exported coal, oil, and gas and talent, and it's a damn shame what we've done. So we've got to turn that around quickly.
All right, well, that I think is a great way to end tonight's event. Let's give a big hand to our panelists. Oh, wait a minute. Even though I felt that ended on a great note, we've had this woman has been wanting to ask a question.
Okay, my query is to examine and explore virtual reality in a situation where we're trying to heal the culture of this country. We have a struggle because we have these isolationist people in our rooms, our classrooms. I see students all the time. They're germophobic, they're isolationists. And we have created this because of our wars. Wars and wars and wars. This is what they've grown up with. My question is this: can you give them an idea of how it feels to be in a situation such as the Freedom Riders? Okay? I'm not there. I'm not, I'm past that. But can you give an experience with a virtual reality situation in a classroom, understanding situations, what goes on? Where do you see virtual reality heading in our education system? That's my question. Yes.
Gordon's going to let me answer that.
Oh, good.
Because, so I'm not sure, I think that's a big ask of our panelists, a very specific ask. I think at some point I'd love to know what you're doing in your program. But virtual reality is a technology, it's a tool, it's a way to create empathy. And I would say that I know at our university we're engaging in virtual reality for doing some of those same things. But it may not be the panacea to all the challenges we face in higher education, but it is a tool. So I think I'm going to, but I'd love to talk to you more. Does that sound good? Okay. And I want to thank our panelists again. Big hand, please, for everybody. And I thank all of you, and the conversation will continue tomorrow.
Good job tonight.